Hey everyone, I'm Max. Today I'll just be speaking a little bit about my life growing up because I've got autism, OCD, ADHD, and epilepsy. Growing up, I would say life was difficult for me because the lack of understanding. I went to primary and there was a lot of teachers that didn't really understand my conditions to the point that my mum would have to often go in and say, I think he's got this, I think he's got that, and the teacher just turned around one day and said, no, he's just naughty. And that was kind of the level of understanding that teachers had back then. I think it's slowly improving and more awareness is happening, but we're still at a stage where the awareness is growing, but the understanding isn't. Like, people are aware of autism, but they're not understanding how it can affect somebody. So, growing up at school, I found it very hard to make friends. I couldn't speak till I was 6, so that was quite difficult for me growing up. I had to do Mac and Tom, and funny enough, I think the only person that really ever understood what I was on about was my mum. Literally, I just could go to my mum, and my mum would know what I was going on about. So, what's he want? A biscuit? Get him a biscuit. And that would be, my mum would be the only person. If it was my nan would be like, what is he going on about? And my mum would just be like, oh, he wants to go outside. And it was almost, it's just I think it's very odd how, like, your mum can have that kind of bond with you and know what you want. Mothers know best as such. So, but growing up, making friends is very difficult. I remember, trying to play football and I'd run in the middle of the pitch and pick the ball up and run with it, and people would have a go at me because I didn't understand how to play football, and all I really wanted to do was fit in and make friends. And I would say I only really started making friends around year 5, where I entered a singing contest. Now, I'm terrible at singing now. I probably was back then, but I just like to think I was good to make myself sleep at night. The fact getting on stage and just drowning it out, scares me a bit. But it really made me come out my shell, and it was something I really enjoyed. And the education side of things always kind of bored me, didn't really find it interesting, but that really kind of got me making friends, socialising in the way that I needed to. So I started making friends, and about year 6 time, unfortunately, because I had a statement and health care plan at the time, I mean, it was a statement back then, but I think it's just a health and care plan now. The government got to pick what school I went to, which was quite difficult because I'd just literally made all of my friends. They were going up to the school up the road, and then suddenly I was sent to a school in Reading that I'd never heard of, never been to before, and the whole kind of process had to start. It didn't help in year 7. My granddad sadly passed away, so it was all kind of kicking off all at once. I was then making new friends, kind of having to deal with this grief that I'd never kind of felt before and didn't really know how to cope with it, really. And I kind of went again trying to make friends, and that slowly became me just trying to be someone I wasn't. There was a really good year 5 teacher, and she knew that I had a lot of anxiety a lot of the time. And what she did for me was she made me this green box in year 5, and she said, if you ever get worried about anything, I want you to write down the thought and put it in the box. And when you do that, the thought is out of your head. I don't want you to think about it. And we'll go through it at the end of the day, if you want to, and we'll speak about it. And what that taught me was really how to prioritise my thinking. Because by the time I looked at the end of the day, there was loads of worries in there that I thought, well, why was I worried about that for? That's gone now. As before, I'd worry about it all day, and then I would just waste time worrying and stressing over something that didn't even happen. Because that's most of the worries, it's just things that might happen. Worries that we don't have control of, something that we can't change. If I ever fell out with someone, I wanted to make up with them instantly, because I didn't want that worry or that stress over me. I just wanted it sorted. I'm still a bit like that now, but as I've got older, I've kind of, in a sad way, I feel, is I've had to kind of adapt to the world and how it's like. And actually, I think that really the world should be adapting to the people with the needs, because some people don't have the skills to do that. Luckily, I've been very fortunate to be able to adapt, but some people just might not be able to. And it's, I don't want anyone living in a world where they feel that they're different, or they feel that they're not part of a community, because they are. It's just the community needs to change and support and evolve with them to support them in the way that they need. So I went to secondary school. It's safe to say I went into an ASD unit, but what I found over time was that all the kids that had conditions who showed the first sign of struggle, not going to lessons, not turning up, some fights, saying something to the teacher they maybe shouldn't have, they would slowly be ushered out the school. They'd be kicked out, and I'm thinking, well, I'm in an ASD unit. This is an ASD unit. You're meant. This is why they're here. You're meant to help the people that are in here. And the people that had the conditions but behaved, they would stay at the school. The people that went to their lessons and had a condition, they would stay, and the people that had a little bit of issues or struggles, they was gone. And sadly, I then fell into that category because, at one point I had 8 kids threatening to beat me up, and I didn't want to go into the class because I was scared, and they were part of my tutor group, so it wasn't like I really had a choice, So they kicked me out, and then I was given the option of boarding school and a school in Oxford that was an autistic school. And my mum was told, and that's because my mum is a great support. There's no one on this world I probably love more than my mum. She's made me who I am, and I've learned a lot through her. But she would agree as well that she's probably learned a lot through me as well, because she's kind of had to. As my mum always says, like, normally your kids grow up with you, but I've had to grow up with him. And I think to that sense it's true, because she's had to pick up a lot of things that bother me, what trigger me. It's still little things today. It's like my brother came home the other day, and he said, "Oh, I didn't get a haircut. It was rammed." And I thought, "What's that? Rammed?" I hate that word. It sounds horrible. Rammed. So I was driving the other day with my mum, and my mum said, "I would have got on that road, but it was rammed." And she went to say it, and she went, "No, packed. Sorry, it was packed." And I just went, "You were going to say," and she was like, "Yeah, I was." But she changed it because she knew it bothered me. And it's just things like that. But we have a laugh about it. But that was what it was like when I was younger. If they were ever to go out, I would need to know 2 weeks before, because it's that sudden change. We're going out this weekend. What? What am I doing then? What? And everything would just be manic. World War III kicking out basically. So a lot of kind of things they had to change and adapt to kind of help me, and before long they kind of weaned it off a bit, so 2 weeks became 1 week, we're going out this weekend, and then and now they can happily just go, right, we're going to the shop now, and I'll be like, oh, okay. But it's because they've slowly done it as I've got older. If they was just to go from 2 weeks to 1 day, hell would break loose for it again. But it's because of that way of they've taught me. But I left that secondary school and I went to a autistic school up in Oxford. And I'll be honest, when I got there, I was very under the impression it was an autism school, but actually this school was for a complex amount of needs. You had people that had saw very horrible things, that were very traumatised by events. A lot of them was very aggressive. A lot of them had a lot of other conditions, and there was probably a good 20 fights a day in the classroom, and there's only 6 of us in the classroom. There's a good 20 fights every day. Happy to say I wasn't ever part of one, but it's, at times it was like being in a prison, and seeing fights constantly, to the point where the teachers would trust me enough and throw me the walkie-talkie to call for help, because they knew if they threw it to the other kid, he'd just go like, yeah, fight, and I would, and it was so scary at times. I remember there was one instance, because normally you have a TA in the class as well, and they could physically restrain at the school, positively handle at the school. And the TA went out the room once, and I just remember this kid went to walk out, and there was no TA in the room, and the teacher said, "No, you're not going," and he just grabbed him, pulled him on the floor, and started hitting him. And there was no TA in the room, so I had no walkie-talkie, so I literally had to run out the classroom and scream for help, because this guy is literally getting battered, and God knows what would have happened if no one came up. But I always remember, because a guy came around the stairs and went, "Are you joking?" I was like, "No." And then they all came running in. So I would say that school was really good and the support was really good. And the reason that school was really good for support was because I hate the general idea that we must treat everybody the same and all of this kind of attitude, because I think everyone is different and I don't act the same as I would around my mates as I would my nan. You know, my nan wants to go out and play bingo. My mates wants to go out nightclubbing. So the idea that we've got to treat people the same. If I went up to my nan and said, "Let's go out nightclubbing, Nan," my nan would be like, "What are you on about? I'm bingo tonight. Daphne's going to be down there." So that's my thought process. So I think, you know, autism is a big range. So is any condition. It affects people in so many different ways, and the idea that we must treat everybody the same, I think it's just ridiculous, because the true understanding of a condition is to understand how it affects that individual, and then only then you can actually understand the condition and how it affects that person. So after school, I left without any GCSEs because the school unfortunately didn't do any GCSEs. So I thought, oh God, KFC it is then. Yeah. Best case scenario. But I thought, you know, no, I kind of want more for myself. And, you know, and it was hard. It was a real pain and a real struggle, because every employer, and and this what annoys me, you know, with employment is they always ask for the GCSEs probably on your first job, and after you've been employed once, they never ask for it again. You know, every job interview I've got, I've never been asked, what did you get in English? I was like, no one's ever asked, because it becomes irrelevant after the first kind of job. First job they want to know because you've not done anything, which is fair enough. But after that process, I can 100% say if anyone's out there, they could probably just put a job that they've never done before, and they'll probably never be asked their GCSEs or anything, which is, I think, just a really bad system in place. And you know, I have a lot of speeches at the Houses of Parliament where we speak about this, and one of them said to me in a room once, like, "Well, what do you think we should do then?" I said, "Well, why don't you just start, you know, actually assessing people and what they want to do, rather than knowing, you know, what frustrates me about school is I knew how many wives Henry VIII had, but I didn't know how to read a pay slip. That's great, isn't it? Oh yeah, he had 6 wives, big deal. What does this mean? What's my tax code? What's this? What's that? All these skills that I need, I don't actually know by the time I leave school. And that was what was good about that school, is they did teach you things like that, credit card fraud, all of these other things that normal schools didn't, but this school could. So I left that school. Luckily, I got some work experience, and I've done work experience in a cafe. And that taught me I never want to work in a cafe. I didn't like it. The textures of the soap really bothered me. So, like, if I was on wash-up duty, it's really hard to say I'm not doing wash-up, because people just think you're being lazy. And it's like, no, I just can't stand the texture of it. I can't stand the smell. I can't stand it. Work experience, I'd done the calf and I didn't like it. And then I thought, okay, well, let's try and get another job that I actually really want to do. And at the time, still now, it's IT. I'd got work experience at a company for 8 weeks at a company doing IT. And I walked in day one, I thought I knew everything about IT. And I walked out and my mum said, "How was it?" And I just went, "I know nothing about IT." Literally, I think the only thing I knew was control panel at that point. And you know what your mum and dad like, they think you're a genius, because you just, you know, they fix their broken things that are so simple. And then they send you to this place and they're like, "Oh yes, if you just plug the influx capacitor within the in-valve unit," and you're like, "What are you on about?" So that was basically that. But then I went there and they were going to take me on for an internship, but unfortunately they moved down to London, so that kind of ruined it. I then went to college, and funny enough, it was going to be, you know, the course where you have to do one course to then get the grades that you should have done at school. But luckily, I got given an unconditional offer, which meant the grades that was going at the school, which was functional skills, they said, if you get them, we'll let you in. So I went in. My first year of college was my last. I did complete my course, but I hated it. Again, it was making friends, it's independence, you're all on your own. Do this, do that, you have to do this in your own time, and it's just kind of, again, really focusing on, and I was never good at homework anyway, so the idea of taking work home from college and then doing it, you know, was again another mind blow for me, because I was like, oh my God. And again, the lack of understanding, you know, you're an autistic guy, you're going into this, college, you don't know what it looks like, you've got no one there to like help you on the first day as you would at a school. It's just really intimidating. Anyway, I'd done my course, and then I applied for a role as an apprentice at a housing company. So I thought, okay, it's out of 300 people, and during this time when I was at college as well, I thought, okay, I love acting. I was watching EastEnders of all things. Don't judge me. And I thought I'd love to play like a story every night, night in, night out, just tell a story on the telly. And I thought, well, get off your bum and do it. So I've done some plays in Newbury, and I done The Passion in Newbury, and my line was like, ye worthy men, goodly and great, and all this stuff. And then the other one I played as a village idiot, which isn't far from the truth. So I done those plays, and then the makeup artist for the second play I done said she was doing the makeup for Glue on E4. So I said, oh, okay. I said, I'd love to come along and be an extra. And she said, okay. I'll tell you all a funny story. This day was probably one of the worst days of my life. At this time as well, I went for the job interview at the housing place. Out of 300 people, they narrowed it down to 50. I walk in, checkered shirt and chinos, everyone else is in a suit, because the email said come smart, and that was my idea of smart. As an autistic young man, I thought smart meant checkered shirt and chinos. So I turned up, looking smart, they're looking great, and I think I'm not going to get this role. And then they go, all right, everyone stand up in the room and introduce yourselves. I'm thinking, oh my God. And then they're going, okay, you're stranded on a beach, pick 15 items, and you've got everyone fighting out like gladiators, getting their voices in, what about if we take, the crisp packet and all this, and you're thinking, when you're trying to find your point without being rude, and social cues are just blowing up in my head at this point. Then you have to do an English and maths test, which they say, don't worry, we don't look at the result, but obviously I'm thinking, why are we doing it then? So anyway, I had the interview and it went really well. And anyway, 3 weeks after, they rang me and they said, no, we'd like to offer you the role. So they were meant to take on one apprentice that year, and they took on two because basically they'd met the guy that they wanted to take on at a show. They said that they was just that impressed they took me on as well. I was there at the housing place for over a year. Well, I was there for 4 years in whole, but the apprenticeship took me a year. But getting back to Glue at this time, my mum, when I got the job, said, well, you're going to have to get the bus to get your new role. And I said, no, I'm not getting the bus. She goes, well, I ain't taking it. So, my mum, bless her, she it might sound harsh, but she does it for a reason, because she knows that for me, if I want to live the life that I wanted, I needed to do these things. Otherwise, she didn't want to be a chauffeur either, to be fair. So when I said about the job at Glue, I said it's up in Lambourne. And she goes, well, you have to get the bus then. I was like, well, can't you take it? And I was like, no, you're going to have to get the bus soon, so no time like the present. And what she did, what was really clever, is she knew it would take something I really wanted to do to get me on the bus. As the work was like, well, I won't go to work then. But with that, it was like, well, if you want your acting career, you're going to have to get the bus and do the things that you don't want to do. Anyway, so the day I done it, she said to me, bless her, right before, she goes, I can take you if you want. And I went, no, Mum, I said, I've got to do it, you're right. So I got the bus, and there, behold, I spilt a load of Coke down my trousers, so it looked like I wet myself. And then I got to the show, and I was asked if I wanted to go topless for the extra role, and I said, no, I do not. And then they said, well, what you're wearing isn't it was meant to be like a rave, and they said it's not ravey enough. I was like, well, what do you mean ravey? Anyway, they stuck me in a tent. I came out with a Hawaiian shirt with shorts on, with sunglasses, with flip-flops, looking like something out of Hawaii 05. Then I'm speaking to this guy, and I'm not paying attention to anything that he is wearing whatsoever. And I'm speaking to this, 50-year-old guy. He's a lovely guy. And literally the director comes down and he goes, right, bring on the naked women. And all these women walk out. And I'm like, where the heck am I, right? Like, what have I signed up for? And then they're saying, right, bring on the guy with the bikini. And it's like, what? And anyway, they said, right, bring on the naked guy. And like the guy that stood next to me, he's got a robe on, and he's undone his robe. And yeah, you can imagine the rest. And literally, I was like, what have I signed up for? So 13 hours of standing up, filming all day. The best thing about that day was there was a rope separating the extras and the actors. And me being me, I went over the rope. So people were going up to me going, who are you? I was like, oh, I'm an actor. I'm joining next week. I'm just here to check out the show. And they were like, all right then. So I got all the information I did just to try and find out how I could make it in acting. You know, who do you know who's official? Because there's a lot of people that want to take advantage. You know, come down to London, 200 quid, blah, blah, blah. So I just got all the advice on who was legit and who wasn't. So from that, I got in the car. Mum said again, how did it go? I said, I need to go home and clean because I feel so bad right now. So after that, it put me off for a little while, but I thought hopefully it's just a one-off experience. So got the job at the housing place, and basically I was there for 4.5 years, but the kind of thing that I needed to do to pass my apprenticeship was I needed to pass maths. So it took me 7 times to pass maths. I finally did it with dedication, hard work. And then what I did was I won Apprentice of the Year for 2016 for West Berkshire. And then I finally got my first big acting break, so I went on to Holby City and was a main actor on that. Now off the back of that I got an agent, so I've been in Doctors twice, I've done adverts for Ford and Santander, and then I was picked to do the actor role for the National Autistic Society campaign, which was about employment, because at the moment there's only 16% of people in employment with autism. That hasn't changed for 10 years, so I do a lot of work with government. And now they've agreed the other day that they will start taking count of the numbers, because it wasn't them that was taking account numbers, it was the National Autistic Society. So not only we've got them to lower the grade for an apprenticeship, so people with conditions only need a level 1 now instead of a level 2 maths like myself, they only need a level 1, and they're going to start taking records of the numbers of people who have autism, who are in work and who isn't. So a lot of changes happening there. A lot of ambassador work, so I'm now ambassador for them as well. And I moved on from my other job to become a senior IT analyst and just moving somewhere else now. So I suppose my message is today, you know, I feel that the only way that people with conditions and disabilities can do well is you have that good supportive environment around you. And the only way that we can enforce that is by events like this, because it really enforces that change. It makes people listen, and it makes people realise actually we're not doing this and we need to. So more awareness, more understanding, and really I always say to people, never look at somebody with a disability and don't think that they're not, you know, able to do what you think they can, because I've been underestimated all my life, and if I was to ask someone 10 years ago, what do you think Max would be doing in 10 years? I'd probably say, oh, I'd probably be a pizza hut or something. So I always think, you know, invest in people with disabilities, never underestimate them, and keep doing events like this, because it really sends a strong message that actually it is important, and we can only get them to the level that they want to be is if we help and we understand and we evolve all together. But thank you for your time, and hope that was helpful. Thank you.